Guardian Ultimates tier list, here we go. So the rankings here are going to be based on overall power and usefulness of the ultimates, the damage they do, the CC they provide, the utility stats they give, all that kind of stuff. This isn't a most fun or most cool tier list, just so you know. Also, these are being ranked against each other, not against other classes' ultimates or against basic abilities or anything like that, so if something is in B tier, it doesn't mean it's an awful ability, just worse than the other ones that are on the list. Oh, and one final note, I'm ranking these in terms of conquest viability, since the game modes we're talking about does impact this kind of stuff with things like global ultimates and stuff like that. Also, sorry if the audio quality isn't amazing, I've got a kind of echoey room because I've moved into my new house. I'm trying to sort it for future videos, but I just had to get one out now. So if the audio quality isn't up to standard, I'm sorry about that. And one final note, of course this is my own opinion, but it's well informed and of course 500% accurate and irrefutable in any case, so let's get right into it. So going alphabetically through all the Guardians, Aries will be first up, and I think A for Aries, A tier. Aries Ultimate is really solid, providing a very unique kind of CC, being able to group people up for something like a Mage Ultimate follow-up, which can be very strong. But the main issue with Aries Ultimate is how easily it's countered with stuff like Beads, Magi's Cloak, or any kind of CC immune ultimate, which a lot of gods in the game have and are willing to burn just to dodge an Aries Ultimate. Things like Scylla or Anhur Ultimate, for example, they can use the ultimate to get the CC immunity to dodge the pull and then pump the damage straight into Aries while he's ulting, which does take this ultimate down a peg. I think if Aries Ultimate always pulled people and wasn't able to be cleansed, it'd be like an S+ tier ultimate, but because of the counters that it has, I think it's just A tier. Pretty solid. So the second one is Atiya, which I'm gonna put in A tier because it's really hard to rank Atiya Ultimate properly. Depending on how you look at the ability, it could be D tier or it could be SS tier. If you count it as like the passive effect and giving her 3 extra abilities, that's broken as hell. But if you just look at the passive effect and consider her other 3 abilities as not part of the ultimate, then it's really trash. And I'm not going to judge it at those polar opposites and put it in either D or S+, so I'm going to put it in A just because depending on how you consider it, it could be really strong or really crap, so I'm just going to put it in a balanced tier. But some of you guys might want to take a more hardline stance on that and would say, oh, this ultimate is really strong because it gives you 3 extra abilities, or this ultimate's garbage because it's just a passive, basically. But for me, I'm trying to be relatively unbiased, so I'm going to leave it in A for now. Athena Ultimate, definitely S tier. The global mobility is insanely strong, and she's the only Guardian that really has that global presence. There are other ultimates like Yomanganda that are sort of semi-global almost, but Athena only has that truly global presence, being able to teleport to an ally no matter where they are. But not only is it the global mobility, it also does a crap ton of damage if you can manage to land it on someone, and the damage mitigation on the ally that you ult to can save people's lives more than you would think. The one thing this ultimate does lack is a very powerful CC, like a lot of other Guardian ultimates have, like Geb or Cerberus for example. But considering Athena has the taunt on her too that's on a very low cooldown, I think she can lack that really big CC in her ultimate and go for other utility stats like the damage mitigation and the mobility from this ability, and she'll make up the CC elsewhere like from the taunt. Baccus, I think Baccus ultimate is B+, probably B+. It obviously does an insane amount of burst damage, and that makes it very good early to mid game when it can chunk as hard as a mage ultimate, but I think overall the CC on this ability is fairly weak. Not being able to control your character properly can cause you to like run into enemy abilities and things like that, but it's nothing like a stun or a knock-up or a taunt or anything like that. And its lack of overall CC and utility past about maybe 15 minutes into the game when its damage falls off a little bit, it doesn't really do too much late game compared to a lot of other Guardian ultimates, which is why I think it's around B+. Cobraconol ultimate, definitely B tier. I was going to put Baccus ult in B tier, but then I realised Cobraconol is definitely worse than it, and I didn't really want to put Cobraconol in C tier because it's not really like useless. This is really kind of similar to Baccus. It does really good damage and can scale quite well. But if you're not building Cobraconol's damage, the damage will fall off by late game, and the CC this ability provides isn't really that great. Especially when the walls can be destroyed so quickly by late game ADCs and basic attack assassins, it just really doesn't do too much late game, which is why I think it's a B tier ultimate. Cerberus ult, A tier. Similar to Aries, this is countered really hard by CC immunity or even knock-up immunity, which is a big problem for this ability. Anyone like Thor, for example, that can instantly activate a knock-up immunity can easily dodge this ability, since it's very telegraphed and takes a while to actually come through. But similar to a lot of these ultimates like Aries, if it's not immune, it's incredibly powerful, so I don't really want to put it much lower because sometimes the enemy just doesn't have beads or their ultimate to dodge it, and then you get some free kills, so I can't really put it much lower than A tier. Fafnir ultimate, also A tier. The same as Atiya really, it's really hard to properly rank stance change ultimates on whether you see it as just immunity and a little bit of damage or an entirely separate kit, depends on how you really view it. So I'm not going to put it as super top tier or super crap tier, I'm just going to put it in A. Ganesha ultimate, also A. The fact that it traps people and it almost looks like a semi-root, it's not a root, but it traps them in a very small area, making them very easy to hit with like your mage abilities or just hunter auto attacks because it can't really juke around too much. Sometimes it could just do insane damage or blow people up if you manage to like dash into them and catch them on one of the walls, or just one of your teammates CCs them on the walls. It can do a lot of damage. It is quite easily countered by jumps, but you can silence them as Ganesh to make them like burn beads and have to jump out, and if you get beads plus their jump just for your ultimate and your silence, the team can follow up, and it's actually a very powerful ultimate in that case. I feel like Ganesha ult is a really quintessential A tier ultimate. Geb's Cataclysm, S+. This has a ridiculous amount of CC with a 2-second stun in a massive area that never falls off. This ability only gets stronger as the game progresses, unlike something like a Baccus ultimate that relies on damage where that will fall off late game. Geb's CC is always going to be strong no matter what stage of the game. Ultimately, a stun is a stun and can always be set up for your team or peel, and it's not really going to fall off the same way a Baccus or a Cobraconol might do. It does lag quite a bit in the damage department, but I feel like for the way Geb plays, you don't need a big flashy damage ultimate, you just need that reliable stun that your teammates can follow up on, and it's insanely powerful. Yomanganda, A+. This is a very high utility ultimate. It can do a lot of different things for you depending on what you need in the situation. You can use it as an escape, with like hitting with a couple of the leaps and then getting out with the last one. You can chase people down very effectively with this. You can disrupt an entire fight, knocking multiple people up. It does a pretty hefty amount of damage as well, and the self-banish while still being able to do useful things is very powerful. It's also great for buying time or stalling at objectives or when you're sieging. Like if your team goes to siege, you can just YOML and force the enemy to pretty much back up or just get knocked up and taken down. And the same thing on objectives. You can ultimate to zone, or you can ultimate to try and get in there and steal an objective, or make space for your team to get in and steal it. This ultimate is really powerful. I think it's bordering on S tier. Speaking of, Caprile ultimate is definitely S tier. The revive is just completely invaluable, and no other ability in the game offers anything similar. That's why it has to be like really high up. It can be played around, so it's not S+ or SS tier where it's just like one of the most broken ultimates in the game, but it is definitely extremely powerful to be able to revive a key target in a fight. If you manage to revive your ADC with this and they do another 2000 damage throughout the fight, that's just absolutely insane, so it's really hard to put Caprile any lower than this, to be honest. But due to the fact it can be played around, has a long cooldown, and doesn't offer anything else but the revive, it's not quite S+ tier, I don't think. Kubakana, A+. This ultimate is really strong, especially for setup for mages, so you can just Kumba ult someone into the sky, hit them with a Rowel, and that's pretty much a free kill. It can also be used as good peel. If, like, an assassin's diving your carry, you can just ult them into the air, and then that's pretty much the ultimate form of peel, right? There's nothing they can do. They can't even beat and continue fighting, they're just up in the air doing nothing. It does pretty solid damage as well, especially for a Guardian ultimate. It's not going to be like a fully charged Yamiya ultimate or anything like that, but it does a lot of damage for the CC that it also has. And it's also great as an interrupt. Think like a Jean-Qui's ulting into your team, just banish him and the ultimate does nothing. That kind of thing. Like no other Guardian ultimate can really do that in terms of interrupting people, throwing them into the sky, which is really powerful. So Kuzenbo's ultimate was originally going to be one of the lowest on the list, probably in B tier, but after taking a look at it and what it can actually do for the team, I think it's actually really powerful, and it's probably a A+. I'm going to put it in A+. It's a very long duration CC. Granted, it's not like complete CC like a stun, it's little tiny knockups, but it does stop people using relics and stop people casting some abilities. Some abilities can be cast in between it, but some have too long of a cast time to be able to be cast in between the small knockups. The damage is very high for a Guardian ultimate, and the disruption and chaos factor is almost similar to that of a Yorm ultimate, where you can't really see what's going on, you're just being knocked up all over the place. It's got a lot of disruption factor. It's not amazing for setup, like it's not going to be a Kumba ultimate or a Geb ultimate for setup, where you're just locking someone in place and allowing your team to just pump damage into them. And it can knock people out of abilities and things, but I think this ultimate does a lot of things that you want on your team, and it's definitely really strong. Now, this pains me, but I think Sobek ultimate is B+. While I do love this god, I think his ultimate isn't really fitting of a Guardian too much. Put this kind of ultimate on a warrior, and I think it will be very strong, but it doesn't really fit the Guardian playstyle too well. The CC on it is really weak. It's just, I mean, it's a pretty hefty slow, but it's still a slow. It's not going to be stunning people in place for your team or anything like that, and it's not going to disrupt enemies casting abilities or basic attacking like a stun would do, so you can't really peel with it that well. Granted, you could say you can peel with the threat of the damage that's going to hit people, but it's not like a hard peel in that case. It's more of a soft peel. And though Sobek does have good CC elsewhere, we're looking mainly at the ultimate here. It does of course have very high damage if you charge it and mana regen as well, which is really nice, especially for solo lane Sobek, but I prefer more CC and utility in my Guardian ultimates to be honest, so this is definitely a B+. Sylvanas' Wrath of Terra, this is definitely an S+ ultimate. It's very similar to Geb in that it's just a huge AoE CC for setup or peel, whatever you need to use it for. The damage is very solid, usually more than Geb, though it does depend on what percentage HP the Geb is hitting them with, but it is less duration than Geb. I believe the knockup is somewhere around 1.5 seconds, but obviously knockups don't list miss the exact time, whereas Geb ultimate is 2 seconds once you get it to that late game scenario. But knockups also can't be purified, so that's something that Sylvanas ult has going for it that Geb doesn't. If you Geb ult 4 people, they could all beads, and then your ultimate doesn't really do anything besides force some beads. With Sylvanas, while it can be pre-beads, if people don't react fast enough, they can't beads while they're in the air, so that's really strong. And overall, it's just a massive circle that hits a bunch of people with CC. That's the quintessential Guardian ultimate, and it's definitely S+. Terra, once again, S+. This does the most amount of stuff in pretty much any ultimate in the game. Massive heals for your team, decent damage to the enemy team, mitigations for your team, and damage increases against the enemy team. This ultimate just does so many different things that are all amazing for your team. And really, you just need to hit 4 people or so, including herself, so 3 more, to be good in a fight. Any more than that, and it's absolutely insane. If you actually add up all the damage and healing numbers from hitting like a 5-man Terra ult, it does something like 2,000 damage and 3,000 healing, or something absolutely ridiculous like that. You can't really say that ultimate's not S+. The only thing it does lack is of course that CC factor, but similar to Athena, Terra has good CC within the rest of her kit, so her ultimate doesn't need it. Xingqian ultimate, Atiya. This parallels once again to Aries, is quite easily countered by jumps or CC immunity from ultimates, magi's or purification beads. Though of course you do still take the damage if you're in the area if you beat it, that was a recent change which is quite nice. And as always with these types of ultimates, it's really powerful if you can actually land it, it's just landing it that's the issue, which is why I think it's A tier. And the final Guardian, Yamiya, I think this is B tier. This ultimate is sort of like Sobek in that it charges up and does damage and slows people, except Yamiya also roots himself, Sobek doesn't do that. Of course, as a trade-off, this ultimate does come with a much higher damage output, and if you fully charge it, it can definitely hit insanely hard, but I don't think it's worth losing all of the CC that you could potentially have on a Guardian ultimate. Granted, Yamiya does have the freeze and the wall for crowd control in the rest of his kit, which can be really strong, but I feel like if this ultimate just had maybe like a 0.5 or a 1 second stun at the end of it, it would be great. Obviously, I think you'll probably have to tone down the damage on it, and maybe make the stun scale up in duration as he charges it or something like that, but I feel like this ultimate just needs a little bit of something else for it to be really like a Guardian ultimate. Alright, so that's it for the tier list. I'm sure a lot of you disagree, and that's fine. We all play differently and value different things, so let me know down below who your top ultimate medal for the Guardians goes to, and I'll catch you guys in another video later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.